So this happened about 4 years ago when I was renting a duplex in a pretty quiet part of town. Nothing fancy thin walls, a shared driveway, the kind of place where you know your neighbor's schedule better than you know your own. And I want to say up front, I've told this story to maybe 6 people, and every single one of them has asked me the same question at the end. You'll probably ask it too. I still don't have an answer. The guy who lived on the other side of the duplex was named Gary. Older guy, maybe 60. Kept to himself, but not in a weird way, just a normal, boring neighbor. He worked some kind of night shift. I never asked where. I'd see his car pull out around 9 p.m. most nights and pull back in around 6 a.m., like a metronome. You start to notice patterns like that when you live somewhere long enough, even if you're not trying to. This is important, so remember it. 9 p.m. out, 6 a.m. back, every night. For the 8 months I lived there before this happened. One night in October, I was up late, probably 1:30 a.m., because I couldn't sleep, and I heard his car pull into the driveway. Which was strange, because that's not his pattern. He's supposed to be at work. But okay, maybe he got sick, maybe his shift changed, whatever. I didn't think much of it. I heard his car door, heard him walk up to his side of the duplex, heard his front door, and then I heard him in his kitchen, which shares a wall with my bedroom. I heard the fridge open. I heard him pull out a chair at his kitchen table, that specific screech his chair always made on the tile. I'd heard it 100 times through the wall. I heard him sit down. And I just laid there in the dark thinking, weird. And eventually I fell asleep. Next morning I'm making coffee, and I look out my kitchen window, and Gary's car isn't in the driveway. Now maybe he left early. Maybe he went somewhere. People do that. I didn't think about it again until that evening, when I saw Gary get out of his car in the driveway at his normal time, 9 p.m., heading off to his shift, like always. And I said, "Hey, you feeling okay? I heard you come home last night around 1." And he just looked at me. Not confused looked, still looked, like a very specific kind of still that I didn't have a word for at the time, but I do now. It's the stillness of someone deciding what to say. He said, "I didn't come home last night." And I said, "No, yeah, I heard your car. I heard you in the kitchen." And he said, "I was at work all night. You can check with my supervisor if you want." And then he got in his car and left for his shift. 9 p.m., right on schedule. I want to be really clear that I'm not a person who scares easily. I grew up in a house next to a cemetery. I've done the whole ghost hunting as a teenager thing. I don't get spooked by creaky floors. So my first thought wasn't ghost. My first thought was, okay, someone broke into his apartment last night, sat in his kitchen, and left before morning. That's actually scarier to me than a ghost. A ghost doesn't need anything from you. A person does. So I did the responsible thing. I asked Gary if I could check that his apartment was okay, tell him I was worried someone had gotten in. He let me in, no hesitation, walked me right through it. Nothing was disturbed. Nothing was missing. His kitchen chair, the one with the screech, was pushed in neatly at the table. Same as always. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. About 3 weeks later, same thing. I'm up late. I hear his car in the driveway around 1 a.m. This time I get up. I look through my blinds, and it's his car, his exact car, parked exactly where he parks it. I hear the front door. I hear the fridge. I hear the chair. And this time, I do something I probably shouldn't have. I go to the shared wall, and I knock. 3 knocks. Casual. Like, "Hey, I know you're there." The sound stops. Not slows down. Not, "Oh, he heard me and got quiet." Stops. The way a recording stops. Mid-motion. And then, and this is the part where people always ask me if I'm sure, and yes, I am completely sure I heard the chair get pushed back in on its own. That screech, in reverse, like something rewinding, and then nothing. Silence for the rest of the night. I did not sleep after that. Next day, I catch Gary before his shift, and I just ask him straight out. I say, "Does anyone else have a key to your place? Family? An ex? Anybody?" He says, "No, nobody." Then I ask him something that had been eating at me. I say, "Did you used to live somewhere else in this house? Like, before you had your side? Did you ever live in my side?" And he gets quiet. And he says, "Actually, yeah, years ago, before it was split into a duplex, when it was one house, he rented a room from the woman who used to own it, my side, the exact side I was living in. He says he moved out of that room after about a year because of some stuff he didn't want to get into. When the house got divided into a duplex later, he rented the other side, never went back into what's now my unit, said he didn't want to. I asked him what some stuff meant, and he wouldn't tell me. All he said was, 'You'll figure out the pattern eventually. It's on your side, not mine. I just get echoes.' I moved out 2 months later. Lease wasn't up, ate the fee, didn't care. Here's the question everyone asks me, and I still don't have the answer. If the chair, the fridge, the footsteps, all of it happened on his side, in his kitchen, why did he call it an echo? What was it an echo of? And if it was really about my side, like he said, why was I the only one who ever heard it happen on his? I worked the overnight shift at a gas station for a little over a year in my early 20s, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., out on a stretch of highway where the nearest actual town was 20 minutes away. If you've ever worked a job like that, you know the shift has a personality. Long stretches of nothing, then someone comes in at 3 a.m. buying 6 energy drinks and a bag of ice, and you don't ask questions. It's a strange kind of quiet that gets in you. We had 4 security cameras, one on the register, one on the front door, one on the pumps outside, and one in the back hallway by the walk-in cooler and the office that was camera 4. Camera 4's monitor was the one closest to where I sat, so it was the one I looked at most, mostly out of boredom, just watching an empty hallway do nothing for hours at a time. About 4 months into the job, I started noticing something on camera 4. Real subtle at first. The kind of thing you only catch because you've stared at the same 60 square feet of hallway for 400 hours, and you know exactly how it's supposed to look. There was a shadow near the bottom of the frame, right where the hallway met the cooler door, that wasn't there before. Not moving, just present, like someone had painted a smudge on the lens. I checked the actual hallway. Nothing there. Went back to the monitor. Shadow's still there. I want to be honest with you. My first assumption was a dirty lens or a dead pixel, something boring like that. I mentioned it to my manager. She said she'd get someone to look at it, and life went on because that's what you do with small weird things. You file them under later, and you keep ringing up cigarettes, except the shadow started moving. Not fast, not like a person walking, more like, okay, you know how the minute hand on a clock is technically always moving, but you never actually catch it moving? Like that. I'd look at camera 4, shadows by the cooler door. I'd get busy with a customer for 10 minutes, look back, and the shadow's a foot closer to the hallway camera. Every night, a little closer than the night before. Over about 3 weeks, it went from the far end of the hallway to almost directly under the camera. I went and looked at the hallway itself every single time this happened. There was never anything there. Nothing on the floor, no shadow being cast by anything, nothing out of place. Just an empty, well-lit hallway that looked completely normal to my actual eyes and completely wrong on the monitor. Here's where it gets bad. One night, I remember it was a Tuesday, real dead night, maybe 2 customers the whole shift. I'm sitting there and I glance at camera, 4 out of habit, and the shadow isn't a shadow on the floor anymore. It's shaped like a person, standing. Right at the edge of the frame, at the very bottom, like whatever it was now tall enough to fill the vertical space that used to just have a smear near the floor. I actually stood up out of my chair. And I want to tell you, I ran back there to check. Brave, no fear, but that's not what happened. What happened is, I sat there for 11 minutes, without moving, staring at that monitor, watching a shape that had no reason to be there, just stand, not doing anything. Just being present in a hallway I could see was empty every time I glanced through the little window in the office door. Eventually, a customer's headlights came across the lot and it snapped me out of it. I helped them, they left, and when I looked at camera 4 again, the shape was gone. Just an empty hallway. I did not sleep that day. I called my manager and told her I needed the cameras looked at immediately, not eventually. She sent a tech guy out 2 days later. He checked all 4 cameras. Said everything was functioning completely normally. No glitches, no dead pixels, nothing. He specifically looked at camera 4 for a long time. I remember he got real quiet doing it, and then he said something I've never forgotten. He said, "Cameras don't really glitch into shapes like that. Glitches are supposed to look like nothing. That looks like something." I asked what he meant by that, and he wouldn't really answer, just packed up his stuff and left. I worked 2 more weeks after that, and every single shift, the pattern was the same. Shadow starts at the far end of the hallway near the cooler, and by the middle of the night, it's standing right under the camera. Never once did it appear in the actual hallway when I checked with my own eyes. Only ever on the screen. The last night I worked there, I finally did something different. Instead of checking the hallway when the shape got close, I just watched the monitor the whole way. I wanted to see what happened when it reached the camera, because in 3 weeks, it had never once gotten that far. Something always interrupted me before it did. At 4:47 a.m., nothing interrupted me. The shape reached the bottom of the frame, directly under the lens, and for 1 second, 1 full second, I counted it in my head. Afterward, more times than I can tell you, the entire screen went to static. Not the whole system, just camera 4. 1 second of static, and then camera 4 came back showing the hallway, completely empty, completely normal, like nothing had ever been there at all. I quit that week, told my manager I got a better job offer. I hadn't. I looked up the building's history a while after I left, out of morbid curiosity more than anything. It used to be a different kind of building. Before it was a gas station, a small motel, real short-lived, only open a few years back in the 80s before it shut down and got demolished and rebuilt is what it is now. I couldn't find much about why it closed. Just that it did, fairly abruptly, and that the hallway to the rooms, from what I could piece together from an old satellite photo, ran along almost the exact same line as the hallway to that cooler. I never went back to find out if camera 4 is still doing it. I don't think I want to know. Okay, this one's harder for me to tell, because it's about my sister, and some of you are going to think less of her by the end of it, and I want to say up front, I don't. Whatever this was, I don't think it was her fault, but I need to tell it the way it happened, so bear with me. My sister, I'll call her Dana, is 4 years older than me. When our mom passed, Dana took it hard. Harder than me, I think, or at least it showed different. I moved out of state not long after for work. Dana stayed in the house we grew up in, lived there alone. About a year after Mom died, I came back to visit for a long weekend. First night there, Dana's making dinner, and I noticed she's setting the table for 3. I figured it was just old habit, muscle memory. Whatever you set a table for your family your whole life, sometimes your hands do it before your brain catches up. I didn't say anything. Then she brings the 3rd plate to the table, sets it across from herself, and this is the part that got me. She pulls the chair out for it, pushes it back in a little, the way you do when you're seating someone. I asked, real gentle, "Hey, who's the 3rd plate for?" And she looked at me like I'd asked something strange. She said, "That's for Mom." I laughed, thinking it was a joke, a coping thing, something sweet and sad. Dana didn't laugh. She just said, "She usually gets here around now," and kept cooking. I want to be clear. I did not confront this head on that night. I told myself it was grief. People do things in grief that look strange from the outside and make perfect sense from the inside. I let it go. Second night, same thing. 3rd plate, same seat, chair pulled out. This time, I watched more closely. Dana talked while she cooked normal stuff, asking about my drive, telling me about work, but every so often she'd pause, like she was listening to something, and nod, like she was agreeing with a response I hadn't heard. At one point, she laughed at something. Nothing had been said. Not by me. I asked her, carefully, "Dana, is Mom here? Like, do you feel her here?" And she said, "Not feel. She's here. She sits right there." And she pointed at the empty chair. I need you to understand. My sister was, and is, one of the most grounded, unspooky, practical people I know. She's an accountant. She does not believe in ghosts. She used to make fun of me for watching shows like this one, actually. So this wasn't a person who wanted to believe something. This was a person just stating a fact about her kitchen. 3rd night, I did something I'm not proud of. I waited until Dana went to the bathroom mid-dinner, and I sat down in Mom's chair. Just to see. Just to prove to myself there was nothing there, that this was Dana processing loss in her own way, and that sitting in an empty chair would feel like sitting in an empty chair. It did not feel like an empty chair. I can't fully explain what I mean by that. There wasn't a cold spot, nothing touched me, nothing whispered in my ear. It was more like, when you sit down on a couch cushion right after someone gets up and it's still warm, still shaped like them. It was that. A very specific, very recent absence. Like I'd sat down about 4 seconds too late to catch whatever had just been there. I got up so fast I knocked the chair backward. Dana came back into the kitchen right as I was standing the chair back up, and she looked at me not upset, not scared for me, just sort of sad, and she said, "You felt it too." Huh. Like it confirmed something she already knew and had been quietly hoping someone else would notice, so she wouldn't be carrying it alone. I stayed at that house for 2 more nights, and both nights I watched the third plate get set, and both nights I did not sit in that chair again. On my last morning there, I asked Dana, as gently as I could, if she'd talked to anyone about this. A therapist, a doctor, anyone. She said she had actually months earlier. She said she'd told her therapist about the plate, and her therapist had gently suggested it might be a grief ritual, something to explore. Dana said she stopped bringing it up after that, not because she was convinced the therapist was wrong exactly, but because, and this is a direct quote, I wrote it down in my phone that same day because I didn't want to forget the exact way she said it. I stopped telling her because I didn't want to be talked out of the only part of my day where I don't feel alone. I went home. We talked on the phone regularly, like always. I visited again about 8 months later. The third plate was still being set, and so was a fourth. I noticed it the second I walked in. 2 empty chairs now, both pulled out, both set with plates, silverware laid neat on either side. I asked Dana who the new place was for, trying to keep my voice light, and she looked at me with this expression I'd never seen on her before. Not sad this time. Confused. Like the question didn't make sense. She said, "That one's for you." I told her I was standing right there. I didn't need a plate. I was going to sit in my usual chair, and she just kept looking at the empty seat like she hadn't heard me. Like she was looking past me at something already sitting in it. She set a napkin down in front of the empty chair, smoothed it flat with her hand, and said, without looking away from it, "You've been so quiet lately." That was the thing that finally cracked something open in me. I hadn't gone quiet on her. I'd texted her 2 days before. But standing in that kitchen, I understood, in the specific sick way you understand things you can't yet explain, that whatever Dana had been having dinner with for the past year and a half did not think it was having dinner with our mother anymore. I made an excuse and left that same night. Didn't stay for dinner. Dana didn't ask why. As I was walking to my car, I looked back at the kitchen window and I saw her sitting down at the table, 3 plates full, steam still coming off them, and Dana talking, animated, laughing at something, gesturing at the chair across from her, the chair that was supposed to be for me. I call her every day now, every single day, because I need to hear her voice and know it still sounds like her. She always answers. She always sounds fine, normal, even happy, most days. But she still asks, every single time, in exactly the same tone, like she's reading it off a card, "When are you coming back for dinner?" And every single time, I tell her soon. I have not gone back.